Hi, everybody. Tom Van Hoy with this edition of the Pitt State Football Insider Show. Normally, we talk with the Pitt State assistant football coach each week, but the Gorillas are home on Saturday afternoon against Northwestern Oklahoma State, and it's Hall of Fame game, so I thought we'd visit with Dan Wilkes this week about the Pitt State Athletics Hall of Fame and this year's group going in. Dan, in his 20th year full-time in the Pitt State Athletic Department, third year as Associate Athletic Director for Communications, also in his fifth year as chairman of the Pitt State Athletics Hall of Fame Selection Committee. Before we talk about this year's group of inductees, let's start with some historical perspective and when it all began. Here's Dan Wilkes.
Well, the Athletics Hall of Fame was created in 1988. It was set up under Coach David Sundram, who was the athletic director at the time, and Al Ortolani, our long-time former athletic trainer, were really kind of the pioneers of the Hall of Fame, and so it has grown over the years, but the inception came in 1988, so we're 26 years into the Hall of Fame now.
Your fifth year as chairman of the board, so to speak, to help the selection process and make it all work. Tell us about how it does work at Pittsburgh State from nomination to the process and selection.
Well, for a majority of the categories with student athletes being under consideration, there's objective criteria. There's no subjectivity with it in terms of how they get onto a ballot. Former players that earned All-America status go onto the ballot, as well as individuals who were multiple-time All-Conference honorees, significant, not necessarily two-time honorable mention All-Conference, but multiple-time first-team All-Conference selections, as well as significant record holders. So you'll see any of those types of folks. There's more than 150 student athletes that are on the ballot. Coaches go on based upon their success, and at one time you had to be a national championship coach in order to be considered as a coach, and so in 1988 John Lance went in under meritorious achievement rather than as a coach, and it's really semantics, but it seems rather silly. Later on, the committee amended the Constitution of the Hall of Fame to say that if the coach had gained national class status, was generally considered to have national class status in the profession to go in, and so a person like John Lance that led the Gorillas to a third place national finish and multiple trips to the national tournament would be honored as a coach versus meritorious. And like I say, that's semantics, but still it was a major sticking point for some basketball alums who had a hard time thinking their mentor went in, and there's really I don't think there's a difference between you went in under meritorious or coaching, but I could see their point in it, and so the coaches can go on that way, and then the meritorious achievement category is one that's very wide-ranging, and those we receive outside nominations from folks. It's really a lot of times it's apples and oranges, trying to compare a former standout coach versus someone else. Colonel Bill Hollenbeck was a college administrator and a decorated war hero, and it just really kind of spins the gamut. Ted Watts was is a renowned sports artist and had done a lot of work for PSU athletics. So it just you see the wide range of folks that are in meritorious achievement, and so those nominations we receive from the outside, and then all of them go together on a ballot, and we have an 8-member selection committee, a half and half, split up between current staff members in PSU athletics and alums from our various sports. In the case this year, each of our alums are all past Hall of Fame inductees themselves, so I think that adds some nice perspective, and folks who are aware of the the process, and certainly, proud of the process. Not that anyone else wouldn't be, but I feel like we have a really nice mix of members on the committee now, and that's but that's the setup with it.
Tom Van Hoy visiting today with Dan Wilkes, among his many duties at Pitt State, chairman of the Pitt State Athletics Hall of Fame Selection Committee, the Hall of Fame game against Northwestern Oklahoma State coming up on Saturday afternoon. Dan, is it difficult with the number of sports and trying to keep the ballot, I guess, from not being overloaded with a number of athletes to try to get representation from different sports?
Well, I think it's certainly a focus of the committee. We put a lot of time and energy into it. The committee will pour over the initial ballots where we have, like I said previously, more than 150 people to sift through, and so we ask them not to. I mean, and they certainly wouldn't do this anyway. It's something that really doesn't need said, but you say it anyway to spend some time, review it. The committee votes, and we rank a top 15, each person's top 15, and then score that out and kind of find a top 20 vote getters as semifinalists, and that they vote on their own, and then we get together and we've got the 20 semifinalists, and then you're going to have a pretty good idea of the direction you're headed when you get together, but it can narrow the discussion. But we have a wide range of our committee members. They vary from Coach Subaru is our longtime volleyball coach, as a committee member, and Brian Mantooth, who's an alum and an assistant track and field coach, is on the committee. John Pierce, longtime assistant football coach, is on the committee and within our staff. And so then our alums we try to spread out between the sports. The alums all work on kind of staggered 3-year terms as well. So we want to have fresh a perspective coming in each year, and so there's a rotation there too. But yeah, I don't think anyone sits down and says we have to slot X number of this sport, that sport, men's sports, women's sports. I mean, obviously there's 105 years of history with men's athletics, with football, basketball, and track, where the women's sports are 35 years, 40 years. But by the same token, as we continue to look at it, and as Pittsburgh State transitioned into the NCAA and just the growth of and success of the program across the board, there are a lot of very deserving men and women that are on the ballot. Certainly 6 that are going in this year, and a host of others that were either close or their time will come soon.
Well, let's talk about those that are coming in. I know Aaron McConnell, football, Jeanette, Mott, Owens, cross-country track and field, and has Dina Wathen-Blevins, has that changed a little bit? She was I think scheduled to have a baby maybe.
Yeah, Dina's due any day. Her and her husband are expecting the birth of their first child, and so her doctor has advised her as a first-time mother, I believe, with to try to limit travel and rest and take care of herself. And so we delayed her induction at her request for a year. She will automatically be a member of our class of 2014 next year. It won't be a situation where we have to go back and re-vote her in. She'll be slotted into one of those spots. And we had a similar situation 2 or 3 years ago with Oscar Gonzalez. Oscar was voted in as a tremendous men's basketball player for Coach Iba in the mid to late 1990s, and Oscar was still playing professionally in Spain, and so he had asked and assured us if we could delay his induction by a year. That was going to be the final year before he retired, and the next year he'd be able to come back to Pittsburgh, and he genuinely, that's what he wanted do to be able to come back and see all the folks that were so important to him. And so it wasn't a first in terms of how that was handled with Dina, but it was all precipitated by her request, and we're excited for her family with with their child on the way, and so it's an exciting time for them, and we'll look forward to honoring her next fall.
Well, she was a game changer, no question about it, for volleyball, and we can talk more about that maybe next year when she goes in. But tremendous history, obviously, football, track and field, and some others at Pittsburgh State, other sports, particularly in basketball and so forth. But she was the one that kind of raised the bar there from a volleyball standpoint.
Well, there's no question, and I'm getting old. I guess I've been a full-time staff member for 20 years. But when you look at kind of the folks that helped define a program and the Pitt State volleyball program and its growth and success, it started with that class with Dina Wathen and Gloria Lariogan and others. But Dina was such an impact player for the volleyball program and a real game changer, as you said.
Well, Aaron McConnell was a game changer as well on the defensive line, and four-time All-American. He and Brian Moorman at Pitt State, and soon to be joined by Nate Dreiling after this year, and and does the color on radio right now for Pittsburgh State. So, there's well-deserved honor for Aaron McConnell as well.
Well, it is, and Aaron certainly. He made an immediate impact as a freshman. Obviously, he did as earning All-America this year. But what a fun person as well as a great athlete. Aaron's one of those guys that will has some Peter Pan qualities. He's always fun-loving and played hard. Had a high motor, and he's very committed to youth in Pittsburgh. He's stayed in town as a successful businessman in town, and but when you look back to the early 2000s and those teams, he was somebody that couldn't be blocked single. You probably drew more double teams than anybody that's ever played here on the defensive line.
A little bit bigger than Peter Pan. Jeanette Mott, by the way, at that time, Jeanette Mott. We've talked about the history and success of cross-country track and field at Pitt State, but she was one of the best and a national champion, the steeplechase, and very good in cross-country. And on top of that was the Kimby Jones Award winner at one point as the Female Athlete of the Year in the MIAA and a three-time academic All-American. So she was the real deal as well, both athletically and academically.
Well, yeah, when you talk about the consummate student athlete, you could put Jeanette Mott's picture up, and as you begin to tell her story, what an amazing person, and you talk about Aaron and an imposing person that he was, and his physical strength, and Jeanette was 5'2", but she might pound for pound be and Coach Jewett has talked about this, and it'll be shared again on Saturday, just the physical and mental strength of Jeanette, and really the kind of person that would will her teammates and inspire not only herself to success, but others as well. As you look back on conference championships that she helped the cross country team win, and then 17 individual event MIAA championships in track and field. She ran 4 distance races in one weekend, which was unheard of back in 2002. Score 40 points for your team. We've seen that a time or two since with some athletes, but at that time that's head scratching material that you can run a 5,000, run a 10,000, and go out and score your team 40 points with the amount of running that goes into that for over a 2-day period.
Tom Van Hoy today with Dan Wilkes, chairman of the Pitt State Athletics Hall of Fame Selection Committee. The Hall of Fame game coming up on Saturday afternoon at home. Nice, the Growers are back home after the big win over Mo Western, and these folks will be honored in the morning. We'll talk about that in a moment, and then again at the ball game in the afternoon. You talked about meritorious service, Frank Crespino and Chuck Shelton, both from football are going to go in, and you also mentioned you thought you'd been there a long time, Dan, 20 years. I actually had a high school game when Frank Crespino was coaching at Colgan. I probably shouldn't say that publicly, but those two guys are going to be honored as well for meritorious service.
Well, and very, very richly deserved for both. Two tremendous gentlemen and family men, in addition to successful coaches. Frank Crespino is obviously the impact has been felt locally. He's a Pittsburgh man, played here for Carney Smith in the early 50s, and then stayed home, and just tremendous success across the board at St. Mary's Colgan, state championships in football and baseball. After retiring, came on staff with Coach Ron Randleman, and then Bruce Poland, and coached for about a half dozen years as an assistant at Pitt State, including on the '81 national runner-up team. But just a tremendous person. And Chuck Shelton, the same, played in the '59 and '60. He was an all-conference halfback, and then had a long coaching career, and included being a head coach at Drake and Utah State and Pacific, and multiple-time all-conference and all-district coach, and then got into the Arena Football League and NFL Europe, and some administrative positions as an AD at Pratt Community College, and then an assistant AD at some other stops. But just and I've had the pleasure to know both men, just outstanding individuals, folks who were cut their teeth at Pittsburgh State, proud gorillas, and have gone on and made touched countless lives along the way. And so this is a great opportunity for the Pittsburgh State to honor them for all that they've done.
It's also a legacy category, and Charley Morgan, a former head football coach, and also Vern Akins, track and field, going to go in as well.
Yes, the legacy category, this is the ninth year of it. It was implemented in 2005, and the focus of the legacy category, when we created a Hall of Fame in 1988, there's some physical separation of time from the folks from the first 50 years of the college, from 1903 to 1953, and there were several pioneering student athletes and coaches that went in at that time. But as a committee, as the years would go on, and you're trying to compare and contrast a quarter miler that ran on the old cinder in the 1930s from a Dinsdale Morgan or a Brian Mormon, from the 1990s, and times, and those didn't matter what sport. There was just quite a lack of honors and those type of things. All-America teams were not as prevalent, so you begin to realize that there's some of these folks that you wish you had a slot to where they didn't have to compete against all the more modern folks that are coming out. And so we created the legacy category and said for 10 years, regardless of who goes in on the initial ballot, and we'll take up to a maximum of 5 spots for the regular ballot, that for the 10-year window, after that's done, then we'll take a second ballot that only has the eligible individuals that were here between 03 and 53, and we're going to induct 2 folks under the legacy category, and that's where Vern Akins and Charley Morgan go in this year, along with with others. It started with George Sweat and Lee Badillon, a track and field athlete, back in the inaugural legacy class in '05. But Vern Akins was a Pittsburgh native and just a super accomplished sprinter. He set records in the 220 and the 440-yard dash. That both his times now still rank in the top 5 all time at Pittsburgh State, and we've had some tremendous sprinters in that program. So he was a national class, world class type sprinter, and somebody that we're happy that that history hasn't forgotten and that we can honor. And Charley Morgan, when you look at his time here was the lion's share of it interrupted where our country was, deeply caught up in World War II, and so life on campus wasn't, easy day-to-day life. The men had all gone off to the war, and but Charley had some tremendous teams just prior to the war, and he had a team in 1943 there were only 9 teams in the country that went undefeated that year, and Pittsburgh State had one of them, and to date it's the only team that was the first team to go undefeated for the Gorillas, and in 1953 the school, or 1954 the school put out a 50th anniversary football team. 8 of the 11 men that were picked to that prestigious team by Coach Carney Smith and Joe Murphy and the likes. 8 of the 11 played under Coach Morgan, and so certainly his influence was felt. He's probably one of the central figures, along with Doc Weed and John Lance, in track and basketball, these central figures of Pittsburgh State athletics in the school's first 50 years.
Well, those folks will be honored on Saturday. Now, is that it's Saturday morning, correct?
Yes, it is. Saturday morning at 8:30, we have a formal induction ceremony in the Crimson and Gold Ballroom in the Overman Student Center, and so the 6 inductees we have video presentations that honor each of their accomplishments, and then the inductees, 2 of the inductions will be posthumous with Charley Morgan and Vern Akins, but the members of their families or the individual themselves will accept the awards on their behalf and be formally enshrined into the Athletics Hall of Fame. And then later that afternoon, when the Gorillas play Northwestern Oklahoma at halftime, the inductees will be recognized before the halftime crowd again.
Well, I got to tell you though, Dan, and I don't know if folks can purchase tickets or go, but if you haven't ever been to one of these particular presentations, it's pretty amazing stuff. I was fortunate to MC 15 of those, and at that time, I kind of wanted to get over to the football stadium, get ready to go to the game, and kind of, let's go with this. But I tell you, once you see Brian Byers or John Roderick or Sam Pittman or Chuck Smith or Sonny Pierce, some of those, what it meant to them to go to school at Pitt State and then to get in the Hall of Fame, it's worth going to sometime.
It's really hard to explain. Just the goosebumps that you'll feel, and you may not have any emotional attachment or relation to an inductee other than the common thread of being Gorillas, and I think that's another thing that for folks that don't have ties to Pittsburgh State, that it's hard to understand just exactly what it means to be a Gorilla, and why when we feel like we're a member of Gorilla Nation, that seems like a whole lot more than maybe some other schools that borrow that moniker as well. But it's we will be pleasantly surprised, caught off guard in a good way again Saturday, I guarantee. I mean, folks some people are a little more reticent, and their acceptance speeches won't be quite as long. Others have a lot more on their hearts and on their tongues that they want to spit out. But we'll be surprised and moved on Saturday, and it's certainly a day that for those of us in Pitt State athletics that you circle on your calendar early and say this is one of the important dates that happens on campus this year and every year.
That's Dan Wilkes in his 5th year as chairman of the Pitt State Athletics Hall of Fame Selection Committee and 3rd year as Associate Athletic Director for Communications for PSU. Again, the Hall of Fame game is Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock kick, against Northwestern Oklahoma State. It's a big game because the Gorillas are in town, right? It's a big game because it's Hall of Fame game as well. And just 3 regular season games to go for Pitt State. Northwest Oklahoma home, at Lindenwood, and home with Missouri Southern. That's your Pitt State Football Insider Show for now. I'm Tom Van Hoy. I'm Tom Van Hoy. I'm Tom Van Hoy. I'm Tom